Hello, how are you doing and welcome back to the channel. Is Chris Ashton an all-time great? That's what I'm going to be talking about in this video after the England winger announced he would be retiring at the end of this season. He's had, I think, a brilliant career, and actually I think this is quite an interesting discussion point, so that's what I'm going to get into. Make sure you drop a comment down below, let me know what you think on this topic, and also make sure you like the video and that you're subscribed to the channel as well. All right, let's get into it. So Ashton announced this week that he was retiring at the end of the season. He basically says that his body can't do what he wants it to anymore, and it brings to an end a really great career. As I said in the intro, is he an all-time great? That in itself, I think, is quite an abstract concept. So it entirely depends on how you interpret that. I think there is a case, a very specific case, for why Chris Ashton would be considered an all-time great. I'm going to go through it in this video, and by the end, hopefully I've kind of explained what I mean by that. But you look at the career he's had, and I think it's a great career. I think you look at what he's done in the Premiership, the fact that he's gone and played overseas. He had a period of time where he was one of the best wingers in England and played regularly for the national team, and also a period where he dropped out of the national side, and that will come into my thinking as well. So let's start with the international side of the game, if you like, for Chris Ashton, because there are quite a few notable highlights. Overall, it's 44 appearances for England and 20 tries, which is a decent conversion rate, I think you'd say. Almost kind of a try every 2 games at international level is solid. He scored that try against Australia at Twickenham, which I think will be the memory for a lot of people, where England were defending on their own line. They turned the ball over and Ashton basically went length of the pitch, rounded the fullback and scored under the posts. And that was a moment in time when England weren't accustomed to beating Australia as regularly as they do now. I think we probably forget that. It was quite a seminal, moment and victory for England at that moment in time. And Chris Ashton was a key cog in England's attack, really, in those days. He also scored 4 tries in one Six Nations game against Italy. That same Six Nations, he equalled the record of 6 tries, or the record at the time of 6 tries in an individual Six Nations. And he was also the joint top try scorer at the 2011 Rugby World Cup in New Zealand. So there was a period of time for Chris Ashton where he was one of the most lethal wings in the world, really. If you consider the try scoring ability that he had, those kind of moments that I've just gone through, the support lines that he used to run, he was incredibly effective at getting on the shoulder of a break and finishing off tries. He did it time and time again, and he was absolutely excellent from that. And I think he probably got that from rugby league, because I mentioned the career he's had. Let's not forget that when he was quite young, he made his debut in rugby league. He played for England in rugby league and then made the switch to rugby union. 5 years at Northampton, 5 years at, very successful 5 years at Saracens, and went on to play for a number of other clubs as well. The reason that I don't think Chris Ashton is an all-time great based upon his international career, and 44 caps, 20 tries is very, very good, is he didn't make the Rugby World Cup squad in 2015. And actually the biggest reason is I think he missed that period of success England had when Eddie Jones first came in. I think he was supposed to be part of the 2016 Six Nations team, but he got a ban before that, which ruled him out. So he missed out on that Grand Slam. He then wasn't part of the squad that went to Australia and won 3-0. And he wasn't part of the squad that got to the World Cup final in 2019. So if we want to compare him, if we compare to other wingers, for example, in terms of Jack Nowell or Johnny May, the fact that they were part of that period of England success would maybe tip the scale if we were comparing in their favour, if that makes sense. I think on an international level, as good as he was for England, the fact that he was never in an England team that particularly won anything, I think does count against him when it comes to a discussion of whether he is an all-time great or not, if that makes sense. So overall, really good international career, but I wouldn't say he's an England all-time great. But let's get on to his club career, because for me, his club career is where you can start making an argument for Chris Ashton to be an all-time great. He's won 3 Premiership titles, 2 of them with Saracens and 1 of them more recently with Leicester Tigers. He won 2 Champions Cups with Saracens as well. He's the Premiership's all-time record try scorer. That was a feat that he finally passed fairly recently playing for Sale. And so the record try scorer in the Premiership, and also don't forget the season he had in Toulon. He only went to Toulon for 1 year. I think ultimately the move wasn't right for him and his family. that didn't impact how he played on the pitch. It was a record in the top 14, 24 tries in 23 games for one season for Toulon. Basically, the story with Chris Ashton is pretty much wherever he goes, he scores tries, particularly when he was in form. I know later in his career, and he's hinted at that in his retirement statement, injuries and things like that have maybe hampered him, and he's bounced around clubs a little bit and hasn't had his regular game time. When he was playing week in, week out, when he was on form, he was an absolutely lethal try scorer. His strike rate was frightening. And it goes back to what I said before about him being on the shoulder and bringing the kind of support lines in from rugby league. He was ahead of his time, really, in that way, I think, Chris Ashton. I will mention a couple of other points, which I think if we're reflecting on Chris Ashton's career, it's worth mentioning, probably not worth dwelling on, but I think when you're talking about it in this way, we have to highlight or flag up at least the discipline issues, the weeks, the bans that he's had. He's had a ban for gouging, a ban for biting. He had the infamous incident with Manu Tuolangi when was it Saracens or was it Northampton? I can't remember now off the top of my head, when he played against Tuolangi for Leicester Tigers and got punched in the face and he was throwing shots and it was all a little bit ugly. So there have been moments like that. And in particular, that one in 2016, the discipline issue that ruled him out of that 2016 Grand Slam winning team, I think is a real shame, really, because his England career, in my opinion, changes if he is perhaps part of that team at the start of the Eddie Jones era and wins the Grand Slam. But anyway, it wasn't to be. It's if, buts and maybes. But that's just a few thoughts on Chris Ashton's, really. So my conclusion here of Chris Ashton is, I think if we're talking about an all-time great, I said earlier it's abstract, and it is abstract. It depends how you want to define it. For me, Chris Ashton is an all-time great try scorer in the English game. His conversion rate at international level is good. He's the record try scorer in the Gallagher Premiership. And whenever he was on form and fit enough at Northampton, at Saracens and at Toulon, he scored tries. We saw that time and time again. So he's an all-time great try scorer. I don't think we can consider him a true English all-time great purely because he didn't win enough at international level. I think if you're to be considered one of England's greats, one of their true greats, don't get me wrong, he's had a great career, but to be considered a true great, you need to be winning Six Nations titles and I think going deep in World Cups and things like that. And that just hasn't been the case ultimately for Ashton. So that's my view on Chris Ashton. Am I being harsh? Let me know what you think down below. He's always been one of those characters that seems to rub a lot of people up the wrong way. He had the ash splash celebration for a long time, which annoyed people. I wasn't particularly bothered by it. But anyway, do drop a comment down below. What do you think? Is Chris Ashton an all-time great? And what do you make of my kind of analysis, really, that he's a try-scoring great rather than just an all-round great for England? Do drop a comment down below and let me know. I will see you in the next one. Make sure you subscribe to the channel and like the video. And thanks for watching.